Hello, everyone. I'm Lizette Gabriel, and I'm a librarian in the Business and Economics Department here at the Los Angeles Public Library. Welcome to today's presentation called Protecting Your Identity and Other Assets. This program is part of an ongoing series of programs intended to support Financial Planning Month in October and is brought to you by the Los Angeles Alliance for Economic Inclusion, AEI, and the Los Angeles Public Library. Today's presenters are Jay Park and Lisa Hill from AEI. They will discuss how to protect your identity and assets by fighting back against identity crime, how to protect the value of your assets by taking steps to reduce risk, how to protect identity theft and fraud, and what to do if you are a victim and where to go for help will also be discussed. This presentation is being recorded, and will be available on the library's YouTube channel for you to view or share. Please send us your questions throughout the program, and at the end we will have a Q&A session after the presentation. I now like to pass the presentation over to Jay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jay. I am representing Open Bank, especially AEI programs. We work together to provide trainings and helpful financial resources. But this month, we are presenting protecting your identities and protecting other assets. So we're going to talk about some of the recent issues arising from identity theft and give you some tools to prevent yourself from identity theft and also protect your assets. Today, Lisa and I will go over these materials in details. We're going to talk about what you can do, what are the things that you prepare for these events, and also if it ever happens, what are the things that you can do to mitigate or recover from those situations. So let's dive in. Let's move to the next screen. So first, before we get into the actual trainings, a quick disclaimers that we have to state. These presentation materials are the views of the speakers, myself and Lisa, and not necessarily those of agencies representing here, AEI or FDIC or the place I work. And also, this presentation material cannot be reproduced or distributed unless you receive a prior consent. And lastly, by having the materials here, like it doesn't really endorsing the certain agencies or recommendations, or it's not favored by FDIC or the government or the company I represent. So that's a quick disclaimer, and then we can just dive into the actual material. So today we're gonna cover a few things. First couple thing is couple items are really related to identity risk, and then about protecting your assets. We're going to talk about in details what is really an asset, and also what are the things that we see in the market, and what are the things that you can do to mitigate those risks. And also we talk about some of the red flags that you have to watch out for. And then the next couple section is going to be covered by Lisa. It's about the insurance, which will protect, actually cover in case ever actual event has happened. You can use the insurance to recover. And also, we're going to talk about LA Save program, which is really a big push that LA is pushing to kind of promote the savings program. And then the last slide contains some of the resources that you can reference to. Okay, let's move to the next screens. So today, the focus is the protecting your identities and other assets. Now we talk about, we recently seen spike of these identity theft, and you probably read a lot of news. Maybe we can move to the next screens. We can talk about this right here in this screen. Let me give you a couple the real life situation, real life cases that I have read in the newspaper or learned from training. The first one is I'm going to use the just the fake names. The lady named Sarah. Sarah has actual identity theft situations. When she turned 18, someone applied using her social security number and name, apply for a small credit card, and then that person use her identity and then took out the actual credit cards and then spent all the monies and then never paid. And then that person also used her identities, file falsified tax return, and then receive the tax return funds and then spend it all. And she has discovered this situation about a couple years down the road. And when she accidentally run a credit reports and discovered there are actually the debts outstanding, and also government has some issues with her tax filing when she actually start working and filing the tax. And she has reported this. However, the time it took for her to actually recover from this took 10 years. So she turned 28 and she was finally able to recover from all the issues. That's one example that you might encounter, but that's some things that I actually read. And the other one is another kind of unique situation, is that mid-aged gentleman named John, let's say, he was actually received a bill from hospital saying that, hospital has a bill for John about $50,000, things that he doesn't recognize, service that he never received, and saying he owed this bills to the hospital. And he found out that someone using his identity actually went to a hospital and received the service, and yet that person is not John, and that bill was actually billed to John. So these are the couple kind of unique situation, and yet it's not completely remote, and it actually happens in public. So to protect yourself, there are certain things that we have to watch out for. So that's what we are going to talk about today. Next slide, please. So key takeaway in the first section that I'm going to talk about, key takeaway is that there are things that you can prepare for this. There are certain steps that you can take to reduce those risks. I know it's not possible to mitigate all risk, right? However, there are things that you can prepare for it. That's what we are going to talk about in this first sections. Let's move to the next slide, please. So before we get into this, let's talk about what really asset is. Asset is some things that you own and that has a value. Asset, the word asset actually derives from Latin words ad satinis. It's terms enough. Enough for what, right? Enough for pay the debt. That's what the original words it came from. So if you have some things that is enough to support you, enough to pay debt, something that gives you the value, that's what we call assets, right? What are some of the assets that we know of, right? The real estate, the building, the house, right? That's something we call assets. In a banking, that's very important assets, right? So that's one asset. You have a car. If you own a car, that's an asset. Let's say if you own a deposit account, you have balances in that account. That's an asset, right? And also stocks, bonds, things that you own and has a value, we call assets, right? So sometimes we call liquid assets something that you can easily use ins and out, something that you can spend it, right? Something you can transfer easily. Something illiquid asset is like cars or the real estate, something that you actually have to transfer to someone else. So all these are assets. However, there's another type of assets too. Besides something that you can touch and has a values, some of the things that we call asset is also your identity, your credits. Your identity also have assets, because if you actually go to bank, right, you apply for credit cards using your identities. Let's say someone goes to a bank and apply for credit cards. We actually look at your histories, going to pull a credit report and look at the payment histories. You look at things that you have owned, like buildings or cars. Based on your credit values, we also lend the money out to the customers. So your credit, your identity do carry assets, the perspective of assets. So that's where fraudsters are targeting and then trying to use that asset. That's where the identity theft starts. Okay. So what's a risk? What's a risk? Potential harms. It says the potential harms. Risk always exists in anywhere, but when it comes to identity theft, risk is really someone is using your identities and trying to take your asset, your identity, your value, your credits. That's where the identity risk is, right? So obviously, if you are taking, if someone's taking your identity and then apply for credit cards and don't pay the bills, or apply for some other valuable stuff and then doesn't follow the promise, that not only taints the credit scores, but it also impacts your reputations, right? So that's where the assets lies, and that's the things that you have to watch out for. If you think about deposit account, you always have to, like checking accounts, right? You always have to safeguard. Let's say you have a cash at home, you are safeguarding your cash at home and put it in a vault. Likewise, your identity is also important asset that you have to protect. So let's go to the next screens. Like I said, you cannot eliminate all risk. I work at bank and I'm also risk officer for the bank. And we know like it's impossible to protect every aspects of the risk targeting the bank. However, you can do certain things to eliminate that risk, right? You can create a policies and procedure. You can do certain monitoring, right? You can create certain steps to mitigate the risk. Likewise, you have to know where the risk reside, and then you can create a certain steps that you can reduce those risks. That's what we want to know. What are the things that we can do to mitigate those risks? What are the things that we can take steps to minimize those risks so that we won't be exposed to those identity theft? When you do a certain product choice, when you do a certain let's say you open up a credit account, you have to do certain things so that you can minimize risk. Something happens, then you get alerted. What are the red flags that you see? Then what are the steps that you can take? Those are the things that we can actually create and then mitigate potential risk before it gets even bigger, right? So that's the things that we're going to talk about. You have to watch out for what are your personal information. Just like your personal information, your social security number, your date of birth, your personal physical address, your home address. Those are the things that we call personally identifiable information. You have to safeguard those, and you have to make sure that those gets not used by fraudsters, right? You probably heard the dumpster dive. If you throw away your personally identifiable information, like a bank statement, credit card statement, people actually go out there and dive into the dumpsters and then try to pick that up, and then trying to be like you, so that you can apply for next credit cards, so next bank accounts, right? So you just have to watch out for, you have to be careful about how you handle your personal informations. And also when things are happened, there's always protection, especially for consumers, right? You have your rights, and then the rights also comes with the responsibility. There are certain rules around this consumer protections regulations that you do certainly have rights. However, in order for you to receive that right, you have to follow certain process. Your responsibility is there. So that's something that you have to understand. And then lastly, if something happens, your insurance, let's say you have an insurance, that insurance can kind of cover the loss that you might have suffered, right? So that's something that Lisa is going to talk about later. Let's move to the next screen, please. So, the first section is really to stress, I just want to stress that we recognize the risk. Risk is there. And then you recognize the type of assets that you have, the risk is there, and you just have to take the steps to reduce those. Now, this is very important. And they're saying, the great saying that you got to know yourself. I think that's the first step of the wisdom. Know yourself is important. Know what your asset is, right? You got to know what your asset is. And that's how you start mitigating the risk. You got to know what type of risk is out there, and then from there you can kind of build the steps to protect yourself. So that the first section's key takeaway is that know the risk. Risk is there. Asset has the risk, and then you have to take the step. That recognizing that concept is the very first step to protect your identities. Let's move to the second section of the slide. Yeah. Second section is really we want to delve into the identity theft frauds. Recently, like John's and Sarah's case that I started with, I mean, these are the couple cases that I talked about. But if you actually do a Google search, there are tons of cases out there. People are constantly defrauded, and there are actually the group of people steal the identities and then sell it in the dark web. And that's the place that they are trading. They're actually is trading your personally identifiable information, and they sell it in a certain price. So these fraudsters can apply using your identities and get the benefits from that fraud transactions. So we want to be sure, how to mitigate those identity frauds. So let's move to next screens. In this second section, the key takeaway is that you can reduce your risk of identity theft. Help is available if it happens. So we're gonna talk about what are the steps that reduce the identity theft. I mean, that's a big concept, but there are certain things that we can do to reduce that risk. And I also want to point out what are the type of help is out there. There's a government agency to help you, and also many companies like banks and or credit companies do have services available to help you. So those are the things that you want to know. So let's go to next screens. So like I said, your identity is an asset. Your credibility is an asset. Your personally identifiable information is used to give you, like for credit institution like bank, is use that information to grant you the actual credit, like line of credit or home loan, car loans. It's basically the promise based on your identities, based on your credit performances, historical credit performances. So if you have a good credit, you work hard to build that credit, that promise, that your promise to pay back, your credit score, your value is truly an asset. That's your identity. That's something that you want to protect, right? And now identity theft is the crime that happens when someone use that information, use your identities, and apply for credit. Intent is not paying it back to that institution. Intent is that use your credibilities and deplete that, and then they get the benefits from your identities, right? That's what true identity theft is. So we have to watch out for. Let's move to the next screen, please. So what are the documents that we know of that has your personally identifiable information, right? I mean, we some of these information we know by heart, right? But we do also carry documents, and we also store those informations in your computer system or website somewhere in a cloud system. So let's talk about a few things. Social security number. This number is by far most important, right? Social security number here in the United States, we are using that information to actually tie your payment histories, right? That's where the credit companies are using that social security number as an anchored information to store the information, your credit information. So social security number is very widely used, especially for banks, widely used to open the accounts, not only the credit account, credit cards, but deposit account. It's a required information. There are regulations. One of the the BSA regulations, it says that bank is required to obtain a certain information, and one of them is a social security number. In fact, you are U.S. persons, banks are required to have that. Why? Because we want to be sure that you are you. We want to be sure that you, Jay Park, has that social security number and actually matches it. I know you provide, ID like driver's license when you go open an account. However, in the back end, using your social security number, we actually also run additional layers of reviews. So to make sure that you are in fact you using that information. Second important document is the driver's license or state issued ID cards, because a lot of documents, a lot of credits or even deposit accounts, when you actually go and identify yourself, we use that documents to prove you are actually you. That's why, the fraudsters are creating fake IDs, because it's so easy and for them to use that documents to defraud the financial institutions. So let's say if someone obtain your driver's license or state IDs, and then they will just switch the pictures and then use the basic information in the card. Maybe then when we visually observe the ID versus you're in person, or the presenter, that person can actually bypass the security system, right? So that's driver's license is also a very important document. Medicare's and health insurance ID. Remember earlier I was talking about John. He was defrauded by these fraudsters who went and gotten the service from the hospitals. They use these type of informations to get the service, and then you end up paying that, but you end up being responsible for that bills. Passport is another form of document, just like driver's license. And then taxpayer ID numbers, for especially this is for foreigners who have received ITINs. They do report taxes using that information, and if the fraudsters obtain that information, they can, just like the social security number, they can apply for certain credit transactions or open a deposit account, defraud the banks, and defraud the customers. So these are some of the well-known documents that you also well aware. Let's move to the next screen, please. What are the other documents that nowadays that is also important, because banks and credit institutions do rely on some of these information to identify you, where certain information is included in that document. So, for instance, bank account number or bank statement. Bank statement usually have a bank account number. So when fraudsters obtain those documents, when they call bank, it has a bank statement, has a name, address, right, account number, and they have obtained quite a lot of information. I know they are missing a few, but let's say if they obtain those other few key information, they may be able to bypass those security checks, right? So bank statement is very important. Debit card and credit card numbers, this is important because, people can steal your credit card numbers or debit card numbers and apply for or just conducts the transactions, right? Go into online and then process the transactions. Your social security number or tax return. Tax return is another important document. It has a wealth of information, your financial information, and also has a tax social security number included in there. And also this one, based on the amount of the money you make, you can actually use this information, apply for loans, right? So you definitely have to safeguard. I know no one will just throw away the tax returns, but this is a very important document. And history of where you live and when you live there. And probably notice nowadays when you apply for credits, some of the institutions will ask you, hey, is this the place you live? Out of wallet question type of things, to identify, you are truly you. Because the fraudsters have obtained too much of your identifying information. On top of just regular information, they are kind of layered additional information to truly validate you. But let's say if someone obtained your credit report and have your history of your residence, then that can also be like critical information that fraudsters shouldn't have. So those are the good, very important information to safeguard. Your username and password, obvious, right? If they obtain that information, they can access your online banking account or your, let's say, Amazon, then Amazon account to order stuff, right? So those are the very important. And challenge questions: mother's maiden name, your first car that you drove, where you met your wife first time. Some of the additional questions the institution or the security protections have. And those challenge questions answers also important, because if they obtain those information, they can bypass those security layers. So let's move to the next sections. So how could you be harmed? I mean, I said it multiple times. If those fraudsters obtain those access and gain the access to your financial system, that they can actually conduct those transactions and deplete your values, your account values, and also using your credit and apply for those values, and then responsibility is only left behind. And by the time that you discover that, they're long gone. So it's hard to protect yourself at that point, and it takes time to recover from that damage. Let's go to the next screen, please. There are a few things that you probably heard a lot recently. There are different way of obtaining your personally identifiable information. I can quickly go over this. That we call phishing, right? There are certain tricks that they send it to your email, your the text message, or sometimes even call. So depending on how they do it, they call it differently. We call phishing attempts. Have you initiate certain transactions so that they will obtain your information? For instance, you end up, they send you an urgent message: hey, we need this, you need to click here, and then please provide your login information or something like that. We have discovered that you have pending transaction you have to execute. Please log in and then complete the transaction. And then by clicking it, and you end up putting your login information. By doing so, they have obtained your login information. They will log in themselves and then execute the transaction. Phishing is by voice. They will call you and ask for certain information. Once they obtain that information, they will execute the transaction. Spear phishing is an interesting one. They will target certain individual. Obviously, that individual have certain authorities, and the fraudsters know exactly who that person is, and that person knows a certain information. They're trying to target that person, and then trying to fish that certain informations. Farming is another method. You probably saw something like, just very lookalike website, right? Let's say you have a Bank of America, but then the website has a certain spelling variance, looks exactly like Bank of America, and yet it's not Bank of America. And then by entering your access information, they have obtained your login information. Skimming is another device they use to steal your credit card, debit card information. You probably heard this a lot in the gas stations or whatnot, ATM machines. So as you conduct the transactions, yeah, your transaction is completed, but they also obtain your credit card informations. And social media scamming is a lot right out there. Using social media, they are trying to obtain your access information, ask for certain informations. So those are some of the known ID thefts, the identity stealing process. Let's move to the next screen, please. Few warning signs that you want to pay attention to. Here are a few details that you want to pay attention to. Let's say you have an account and you're certainly noticing certain withdrawals that you don't recognize, right? Certain transactions you don't recognize, missing bills, statements should be coming, and then you don't get the bills, you don't get the statements. That means that something has changed. When you see some changes happening, you should immediately pay attention and then revisit your account. Let's say you went to a merchant and then, let's say if you're trying to process the check and they are refusing your check or credit cards or debit cards. And you should raise a question, what's happening? Maybe the banks or credit company have stopped those transactions. Maybe the system has notified certain unusual transactions. Maybe they were trying to contact you. However, the fraudsters have changed the phone numbers already. So when things happens like this, you immediately has a raise and then follow up with the financial institution and then see what's happening. Let's go to the next screen, please. Additional warning signs, right? Let's say you receiving letters about accounts that you didn't open. Suddenly you got a letter saying that, hey, welcome. We successfully open your, HSBC accounts or Citibank accounts. Hey, you never applied for it. What is this? You should follow up. Um, you suddenly receive an email and saying that you purchased something, right? These are the odd stuff that you usually don't see it, and then you see it now. So those are the things that you have to like kind of follow up. Of course, statements for credit cards you don't have, right? That raise an immediate red flag. And then sometimes debt collectors are calling you and they're trying to collect the debt which you never incur any debts, right? Sometimes another thing, this is interesting. Another thing is that you try to log into your account and then it says invalid. It raised a concern, right? Someone might have changed your password or login information. Then you definitely have to follow up and make sure that that's just an accident or error, not by the fraudsters changing your passwords or login informations. Let's go to the next warning signs. There are a few other ones here. I mean, there are a list of warning signs that we can give you, but here are the few things that you just have to watch out for. Unfamiliar accounts on your credit reports. I recommend you pull a credit report annually. I mean, I'm going to talk about that a little later, but you should look at your credit reports and then see if those accounts listed in there is in fact, those are your accounts. If you notice something that is unusual, you don't recognize, that you should definitely follow up. Medical bills that you service, remember John case, we suddenly receive a bill $50,000. That's not your bill. You should follow up what's going on. Health records, condition that you don't have. When you go to doctor's office, they pull hospital system information. So you suddenly realize you have a heart situations or high blood situation when you don't have a high blood. Then you should really follow up and see what's going on. Sometimes a multiple tax return, IRS, let's say if IRS received the initial tax return and then whoever files the after, they won't let you process it. And then they will hold that tax return. If your tax return doesn't come back within intended time, you should really follow up and see what's going on, what's pending. And who knows, in the situation is IRS identify two same social security numbers being filed for tax returns. In that situation, they will hold that transactions. So in the situations like that, you really have to follow up. And then also, time to time, you probably get this every so often too. Like nowadays, a lot of data breach happening. Sometimes the company will send you, hey, there was a data breach. I think Experian Credit Report Agency also had that data breach not too long ago. And that happened. That means that bad actors had gotten into the system and taken your personally identifiable information. In that situation, you want to be sure, watch your account more closely and see if anything new is changing to your credit reports. Let's move to the next screen, please. Let's talk about a few steps to minimize your identity theft. This is important. Guard your personally identifiable information. I mentioned this a few times already. When you have actually physical documents, right, you make sure that you shred that information before you just throw it away. Don't just throw away your credit card statements, bank account statements, especially credit reports. Don't just put it in a garbage can. You have to actually shred those. Make sure that no one can pick it up and then take that, use that information against you. And then don't respond to unsolicited requests, especially through emails and text messages. I mean, they are being very creative, but if you responded, then that information that you provide to them might work against you, right? And protect your actual physical mail too. When it comes to the physical mail delivering to your house, make sure that those are protected. And things that has already marketing company do already have a lot of information about you. And sometimes credit company will send you like, hey, you're pre-approved, and then has a lot of information already in there. So even if it's a marketing materials that comes into your house for marketing purposes, you want to be sure that those gets disposed correctly, right? Sign up for direct deposit. I mean, this is obvious. Nowadays, most of the people use a direct deposit, but if you haven't done so, use this so no one can steal your paychecks or other checks payments, and then use that and then use it against you, right? And then you clean up your financial trends. This is exactly going back to your statements, right? Make sure that you don't dispose any you personally identify information, including financial informations. And then review your account regularly. Consumer protections starts from here. A lot of regulations give you a certain time period, given that you are reviewing your account, your financial accounts regularly. All right, there's a certain time period that you get protected by the regulation. But if let's say you don't review it, that's also there is also liability on the consumer side. So reviewing your financial record regularly is very important. Let's move to the next screen, please. There are a few more steps. There are certain things that you can do, and especially when it comes to online bankings or internet based, you just have to watch out. What are the type of information you submit to like certain companies, or how the passwords and login informations are being saved. Okay, be very careful about what you are saving on the internet, and make sure that your device is up to date, especially the updates, software updates, or antivirus. And sometimes the malware can be installed in your system, and then they are monitoring all your keystrokes. So updating your system and updating your antivirus system is very important. And review your credit report at least once a year. There's a free credit reviews provided, and you can actually go to that website, annualcreditreport.com, and then you can actually review your credit report free of charge, right? It doesn't affect your credit score by reviewing this. And then keep your important documents secure. We talked about this. Beware of disaster related scam. You see this a lot. I mean, recently there was a hurricanes in Florida and different places, or recently there was a fire in Hawaii, Maui, right? There were spike of fraud transactions. They're asking for certain donations, and yet also asking for certain your personally identifiable information to defraud you. So when they're using your good heart to defraud you, so you just have to watch out. Okay, and there are a lot of articles and news, and in publicly there are a lot of informations out there, especially government website. There's certain websites provide you a lot of information, so be vigilant about that. Read those scam alerts, and then pay attention to those developments. Okay, let's move to the next screens. So here's the things that you can do once it actually happens. When you recognize identity theft, then there is a website that you can actually go to and then report the identity theft. I think this is one of the key steps that you need to take. And you just report your identity theft case to the government, and use also this information to report to your credit companies who are asking to pay them back, right? So you just need to report these information, take that first step, and then communicate with your creditors, and then tell them that this is in fact an identity theft. It's the credit that I didn't use, I didn't pull. I'm being scammed by these fraudsters. Let's go to next screen, please. If your identity has been stolen, like I said, you need to work with the creditors. You need to report to them, and you probably work with the credit reporting agencies too. Usually, when that is there and then it's not being paid, and the creditors, banks or credit card company will report that information to your credit reporting agency like Experian, TransUnion, right? And then you need to report that you actually suffer from identity theft, and you actually also reach out to the creditors and tell them that you have filed the identity theft report to FTC and you actually suffer this loss, and then obtain those informations. What are the things that has taken place under my identity for your records? Okay, and you can also dispute the inaccurate information with the credit reporting agency like Experian and tell them this is inaccurate. I didn't take the funds out. This is not my debt, and I'm suffering. I'm suffered from the identity theft. Then you actually can dispute that information, and then you can also request for credits freeze. I think this is free of charge. You can actually freeze your credits so no one can use your credits. And you actually have, when you actually place that freeze credits, when the banks apply for, when banks request your credit information, it has an alert. So then the bank has to double check this credit application is in fact coming from you, true you, right? So that's something that you have to consider. Let's go to next screen, please. Here are a few things that you can actually credit agencies that you know of, and then you can actually reach out and then get help from. And these are the main three credit report agencies, and they do handle your disputes, right? So you can directly contact them and make that dispute. Let's go to next screen. Communicating with your creditor is very important. Don't just ignore it. When creditor reach out to you and they're saying that this is the debt you owe and they're trying to collect those debt, you need to notify them. This is in fact fraudulent transaction. It's not the debt that I caused, and that's some things that they have to investigate and get a copy of the documents, related documents about this information. In fact, they may want your reporting to the FTCs, right? So those are the things that you actually have open communication and have a discussions. Don't just ignore it. Don't ignore it. Ignoring will cause more problems later. It takes really long time to fix it. So have an active communication. And then if they keep contacting you for debt collections, you have a right to stop that. Tell them this is a fraudulent transactions, and in fact, I am the one who suffered the loss. So, and then the creditor actually have to stop communicating with you if it's in fact identity theft situations. And make sure that all these communications, but don't just do it in the verbal, and then do it with the written communication. And then the written document is actually used at the time of actual investigations. And then in case it goes to the court, written documentation actually leave the paper trail for discussions in future discussion and investigations. Let's go to the next screen, please. You have other federal rights, and you can actually have several regulations protect you in a way, especially when you're a consumer. You can identify type of regulation that protects you. And in fact, if you go to identity.theft.gov, and you can find out different type of rules that are applicable to you, different type of protections that you have. You can actually visit that website and then kind of glance through it. And there are certain things that you can follow through to protect yourself. And also there are other red flags that you can actually read through. There are other rights also you can identify. You can go to USA.gov. Okay. Let's go to the next screen, please. So the second section, we talked about a lot in detail about identity theft, the steps, the red flag, and the steps that you can take when it actually happens. You can definitely reduce your risk of identity theft by recognizing it, by identifying those situations, and also do remember the help is out there. Government help is out there. So these are the key concepts that you have to remember. I think this concludes my sections. I'm going to hand it over to Lizette.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. So now for the rest of the portion of the presentation, Lisa will take over. All right.
Yes, thank you. We will discuss how insurance can reduce the financial impact of a loss and the importance of keeping accurate records. Next slide. Here's the key takeaway. Insurance provides protection from financial loss. And if you're keeping accurate records of your assets and any damages to your property, then you can report that to the insurance company. Next slide. It is important that it is important to reduce your financial impact of a loss or an event that is covered by your insurance policy. For instance, your insurance can cover a car accident, property theft, identity theft, natural disasters, medical expenses, disability, or death. Next slide. Some people in these types of insurance, some people think it's a luxury, but or an unnecessary expense. But we got to look at how this insurance can impact you. And in some instances, in some states, will require that you have car insurance, or it's important to have renter's insurance to protect you with your content inside your apartment. Homeowners insurance is very important because it helps with the fire insurance and any contents that may be stolen inside. Health insurance, it's important that, we can go to the doctor, our expenses, if we end up in the hospital, maybe our, expenses can be reduced with a lower premium amount, or sometimes even going to the doctor on a, annual basis that can be free. So it's important to have these type of insurance. Life insurance is important as well, just in case of death, that that you may have some debts, or if you do die, it can be used towards funeral expenses. Next. Getting insurance, as it depends on everyone's individual circumstances as well. So when you purchase it, it helps to mitigate any risk to your assets. And also consider the things that may happen to you that may cause a serious financial harm. That means that if you get in a car accident, you may be out of work. So you may have disability insurance or some time of short-term life insurance that can help you with your financial monthly expenses during that time. So it's important to look at what you need and how much you need. Next, next slide. It's important to shop around for your insurance, because you don't want to just take the first insurance company that you talk to, and maybe too expensive, but it's important to talk to friends. It's important to do your homework and look at the way that they pay out their policies, and making sure that they do pay on time, and making sure that the coverage is right, and also their terms are okay. Because sometimes and you got to read your insurance policy as well, because sometimes they may have a catchphrase in there that may end up canceling. So you're paying all this insurance, and just some little thing in your insurance policy can end up canceling on you. But it's important to look at those types of insurance and talk to friends and get some kind of reference on good insurance policies that will help you, especially when you're looking at your car insurance, a health insurance, renter's insurance, and home ownership insurance. Next slide. It's important to keep accurate records whenever you are getting ready to file on the insurance, because if you end up filing without knowing accurately how much you spent, what are the damages, what was the asset, how much was the asset when the theft or maybe a fire may happen. You need to know what the value of the asset. So that way, when you go to report to the insurance company, you know how much the insurance coverage will take effect. And sometimes they will pay for all of it. Maybe they'll pay for portions of it. And you also want to know how much it's going to cost to replace or repair that damage that was caused during that time. Next slide. So the key takeaway is insurance is good. It's good to provide protection on financial loss. And then also keep accurate records at the time of when the damages happen to the property or any of your assets. And make sure you keep records, accurate records at that time. Next slide. I would like to get into LA Saves. Now, LA Saves is actually a organization that is, it's actually the bigger company is America Saves, but we have provided LA Saves to actually help you save. We want you to set goals. We want you to make a plan and take action and be accountable for savings. And it's important to do that. Next slide. So, LA Saves is a campaign that is managed by a nonprofit. It's a Consumer Federation of America. It seeks to motivate, encourage, and support low to moderate income families. What you have to do is be able to save money, reduce debt, build wealth. That is the whole concept of LA Saves. We want you to be accountable to be able to save for unexpected things that may happen in your life. So that way, if it does happen, you'll have the money to cover from that loss. Next slide. Savings is good way to protect you from any emergencies, and it gives you an opportunity to also save for vacation. It's also a way to save for schooling or any other things that may come up. And we look at emergency funds, unexpected losses, and everything, because once you have the money, at least you'll be able to pay. If you don't have the money, then you'll end up in a further debt, and then that's borrowing, and it can increase your loss, and your assets can shrink. So it's important to take the time to pledge to yourself that I want to save this starting now and build my financial future. Next slide. So here's how you do it. So what you're going to do is take the pledge. We want your name. You're going to set a goal. We want you to pick how much you want to save per month. Maybe it could be starting out $20. Then when you get a pay increase, you can put $50 per month. And then you make a plan. So the plan is that amount that you're saving, $20 to $50 a month, and then you ask for how long do I want to save? People start out with, hey, I'm going to start saving this year. So you can put 12 months down, and then you go from there. And by the time you end up, you've saved during the whole year. So on the LA Saves, you go on the website and you put this information in. All they need is your name. They'll need how much you want to save per month. And then also they'll need your email address. They'll need your phone number and zip code. The reason for that is that they want to keep in touch with you and say, hey, how are you doing on your savings? Here's some articles that we want to send to you on how to save and how you can do even better. So this is building your financial future. Next slide. So here's the website. It's lasaves.org. You can go to that website and then go through the instructions that is on the next slide. Next slide. So, oh, next slide. Sorry. Next slide. Next slide. Here we go. So here's what the website looks like. So you're making a plan, you see, and it says I will save $160 a month. Then it puts in the 12 months, and then it tells you how much you will save for the 12 months. It's $1,920 a month. I mean, for the whole year. So after that, you can hit keep in touch. So what will happen is you hit that, and then they will send out through your text or through your email additional articles and information and tips on how to save for your future. Next slide. Here are some resources that we had provided earlier. We just want you to identify your identity theft. These are areas that you could go to get more information. We also want to make sure that on an annual basis, you're able to check your credit, annualcreditreport.com. You also need to go to FDIC Consumer Resources if you want to see other resources that are out there for consumers. And also through Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, we have identity theft as well. And then we want you to take that pledge, lasaves.org. Next slide. So here's some actions. What will you do? How will you do it? And if you do, share your plan with someone so you can be accountable for everything about identity, LA Saves, on saving for your future. Next slide. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this whole topic that we sent out to you. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jay. So we're coming towards the end of our presentation. And so far, I don't see any comments popping up. But while they're going on, I just quickly want to mention that because this is October's financial planning month, we have a number of programs coming up. And oh, it looks like we have a question. All right. Let me bring it up here. And then I'll finish. So the first question is, are there any other ways to monitor debit/credit card transactions except reviewing statements?
Yeah, I'll take this questions. Actually, in fact, the credit card companies or banks do offer transaction monitoring alerts. Certain transaction monitoring alert you can set up a threshold, let's say $100 and above transactions, and then you can ask them to send you a text message. So let's say if you go buy, like certain things, and then if the transaction amount is over $100, and then it'll alert you through the text message, and then you know for sure that that's the transaction you took, then that's safe. But let's say if some fraudster is trying to use your account and process $200 transactions, then in fact immediately that's not the transaction you have processed. Then you can contact your financial institutions or credit card companies, and then actually block that transaction from actually processing it. So that's an immediate stuff that you can do.
Okay. Yes, because I've noticed it with my online banking app that it not only sends me a text, it also sends me an email just as a precaution for any fraudulent charges.
Right.
So please pay attention to your text messages. Sometimes they will save you quite a bit of money. Okay, so then what do we have here next? It looks like we have another question. Can I contact my bank when my identity has been stolen?
Yeah, I'll take this one too. You definitely should contact your financial institutions when identity theft has been stolen, regardless that bank that you're contacting has impacted or not, because the fraudsters now have your informations. You probably want to give your institutions a heads up. This has taken place. You need to watch out for any application coming through. And also, if the institution is the one who actually is actually the transaction process through that institutions, that bank has a policy and procedures to follow through to inform the credit reporting agencies to help you fix the issues or help you those fixing process. So you definitely want to reach out to your institutions and get help.
Oh, nice. Great advice. Yeah, because otherwise, I know my wallet was stolen a few years back, and I had so many institutions to contact. It was a little nerve-wracking, but yeah, it definitely helps because they ended up charging like close to $1,000, and I had to fight that with my bank. So definitely be aware. So then let's see if we have one last question here. Yes, we do. This might be for Lisa. What is the purpose of LA Saves?
Yes, the purpose of LA Saves is to save money, reduce debt, and to build your wealth.
Okay, good. Especially if you guys are trying to save for your next vacation or just a staycation. Oh, not to mention whatever you're trying to do for your home, remodeling. That little bit
That's
helps.
right. That's right.
All right. So now I don't see anything else, and I do have some programs to mention. So, as I said earlier, this is our financial planning month, and we will continue with some programs for the rest of October. We will have LA Safes tabling at certain branches, LAPL branches. We also have a financial planning day, which is a great opportunity to book a free private consultation with a financial planner. So I will be putting the website for financial planning month soon. We also have let's see, tomorrow we have investor protection with the SEC. So that is going to be an online program from 12 to 1. And then the other programs that we have are this same program. We are going to have it in Spanish, and then we are going to have it in Korean. So the Korean program will be happening online on Friday, October 25th. And the in-person program will be at Pio Pico Branch Library on Wednesday, October 23rd. Okay. So if you guys need more information about that, I thought I put it up here already. I did. Perfect. So here is the website for more programs that will be happening for Financial Planning Month here at LAPL. And there's another thing I'm sure I'm forgetting. Yes, just to repeat, for those of you who did not have a chance to catch our program from the beginning, or you just kind of want to review the quick steps or what's going on with the presentation, again, it is being recorded and it will be available on the library's YouTube channel. Okay. And anything else I'm forgetting? I don't think so. So thank you again, Lisa and Jay, for this great program regarding identity theft, fraud, LA Saves, and all of you for joining us today. We are already at the end. So have a great afternoon, everyone. And again, thank you for being here with us.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.